Greetings Terrarians, Khaios here. Today I'm going to be building a shipwreck. So by starting off, I want to make sure that the area has a nice scenery to it under the ocean. Normally I would kind of just keep a flat bottom ocean or maybe just a little bit of rolls of sand, but this time I want to have a little bit of a rock feature that it makes it look like that's what the ship had settled on, and I want just a bit of stone in this look. So I am using the sandstone block painted gray just because, obviously, as I usually say, it looks a lot better than stone block does in Terraria. I'm also creating a small little cove just for a little air pocket in here. I'm going to be building with God mode on, and so when I actually do get to adding water, I won't have to worry about drowning, but I want the air pocket in here anyway, just for ambience. Now this isn't going to be a functional build, it's just going to be aesthetic. So if you want to download the world and check it out yourself, there will be a link in the description. In fact, I am posting a link to most of my worlds to be downloaded in the description. And if you want to check out most of the worlds that I have available, go ahead and click on that link. But if you want to play the world and actually use the build, you might need to tweak it a bit. So I'm starting the build off without any water, just because when I do this sort of underwater build, it's always easier to not have to fight the water the entire time if you don't have to. And since we have Tiedit at our disposal to add the water easily later, it's just much easier to add it post-build. So the start of the ship, I have some spooky wood painted brown, some living wood wand, and some rich mahogany painted brown. And I'm just giving the ship a general shape. Also, I started off without using the mod you guys had suggested, but I did get the max stacks mod, logged out, logged back in, and made my stacks much larger. So thank you to those of you who recommended that mod to me. I hadn't heard of it before, and I'm kind of new to modding and Terraria in general, but I really do appreciate that mod. It's really helped me out. So I'm just toying around with the shape of the bow of the ship because I just want it to look right, and so I'm just trying a couple of different designs. Now I'm going to add the masts. There's only going to be 2 here because the ship is going to be snapped in half, with half of it being on top of the rock feature that I've already built, and the third mast will be over there. So just 2 for now, and they're kind of short because I want to make them look like they've been snapped. The middle one I did increase the length of a bit, but it's still relatively short for a ship of this size. But I just wanted to make it look like they had decayed and fallen apart. Now I'm punching some holes into the ship, not only just because I want to make it look like it's falling apart and it's been here for a while, but I'm also going to be building some coral reefs within the ship. Punching these holes in, and then I'm going to be lining the holes with rich mahogany fence, just kind of as little portholes for the cannons or just for peering out. For the rigging, I wanted to use some rope vine just because it looks more worn and frayed, and this is going to have been sitting in the water for quite a while, so I just felt that it would be an appropriate look, and of course I did paint that brown. For the diagonal rigging, I am using the living mahogany wood wand painted brown just because when you use that material in particular, it kind of does look like a rope, and you can slope it at that angle, and it just looks better than actually using a rope to kind of try and get the diagonal shape. Now I'm working on the second half of the ship, and this is where the captain's quarters will be, and the other mast, and some more storage, and there'll also be some more coral reef growing in here as well. Personally, I always find that it's better for making something that's ruined and falling apart if you add all of the walls in first and then knock out segments to make holes in the wall like I did here. I find that if I try to work with a blank canvas and just fill in a wall with this pattern, it doesn't look as natural or as appealing as it does when I start with a blank wall and just break it apart from there. So now I'm adding some support struts on the inside using shadewood wall painted brown, and I'm kind of just giving an outline of where the deck used to be on parts where it's broken using living wood wall, and segments of the build where the walls are falling apart. I'm replacing some of the rich mahogany with some brown painted living leaf wall because it just makes it look like a segment of wood that's really rugged and possibly falling apart when used in this context. I'm going to place a little bit of sail, not much because they would have been torn up over the years with the water current and just decayed, but I just want to have a little bit there just for a little bit of an aesthetic. And then for the top deck of the ship, I'm lining it with some ebonwood fence painted brown, just because that fence, out of all the fences, looks the most rugged. The coral reef is made mostly out of gray painted sandstone block and the coral block unpainted. I'm leaving gaps in certain places specifically because I know that I'm going to be placing things like coral and kelp and strange plants and other decoration. If you want to place any of the dye plants like strange plant or blueberry or orange bloodroot in an underwater build, you need to make sure that you build it first without water, place all of the dye plants that you want to place, and then fill it with water. Because if you fill it with water first, you won't be able to place any of the dye plants. And if you want to use kelp, you'll have to hold off for that for the very last segment because the kelp requires water for you to be able to place it. So place all of your dye plants except for the lime kelp, fill it with water, and then place your lime kelp. I'm just going to do a little bit more terraforming around the ship just to give it a little bit more of an appealing look. And then I'm going to build a coral reef just outside of the ship as well before moving on to the second half. Since this coral reef is not in front of the ship and I don't have the ship's background walls, I decided to throw down some living leaf wall painted white to make it look like a bit of more of this stone in the background. And then I placed the anchor, and the anchor has to be placed on a wall, so I thought I would use the leaf wall, but when it's painted white, the anchor was too hard to see, so I decided to paint it lime, and it kind of just looks like some moss or kelp growth onto the ship. So I decided to roll with that idea on the fly, and I'm placing it in more places. So there's now some of this moss hanging on the riggings, on the masts, and around the coral wherever there isn't already the shipwreck background wall. I'm using some barrels and iron crate and wooden crates and cannons for decorations that appear to be the supplies of the ship before it sunk. I didn't put a whole lot of furniture into this build, but since I had the captain's quarters up here, I thought that I'd throw in a bed, a table, and a chest. Technically speaking, the chest is the Old One Army music box, but I just really like the way that it looks as a decoration piece, so I decided to go with that. Now I'm going into Tiedit to start placing the water. The unfortunate thing about underwater builds in Terraria is the water is extremely dark, so you can't really see the shipwreck very well. So what I end up doing is taking some vortex fragment and placing it around as kind of a bioluminescent type of coral. It's a little bit on the fantasy side of things, but it does help you see the shipwreck once it's actually underwater, and it kind of gives it an eerie ghost ship vibe as well. Now, I do mess up some of the segments of water here by breaking blocks, but I'll go back into Tiedit later and fix that right up. While I'm placing the vortex fragment, I'm also going around and placing some lime kelp now that the build is underwater. I hopped back into T-Edit one last time for a final detail. I just wanted a bunch of oxygen bubbles coming out of this build. So I took a bubble machine, painted the bottom square of it black, and I used T-Edit to paste it around the build really quick. And I also added a waterfall feature to the cave and a few drippers, and the build is done. And that is the Shipwreck Reef done. Admittedly, I like the way that the reef looks more out of the water, but obviously it needs to be in the water to actually look right. I just wish that water in Terraria wasn't so dark. Any rate, I hope you guys enjoyed the build. I enjoyed building it very much. If you like the build and you want to check it out, again, there's a link to all of my worlds in the description below. If you liked the video, be sure to leave a like and a comment, and please subscribe to the channel. If you're already subscribed, be sure to hit the notification bell so you guys get notified every time I make a video. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll catch you all later. Happy building.